This is me, Craig Ferguson. I'm inviting you to come and see my brand new comedy hour. Well, it's about an hour and a half, and I don't have an opener because these guys cost money. But what I'm saying is I'll be on stage for a while. Anyway, come and see me live on the Pants on Fire tour in your region. Tickets are on sale now, and we'll be adding more as the tour continues throughout 2025 and beyond. For a full list of dates, go to thecraigfergusonshow.com. See you on the road, my dears. My name is Craig Ferguson. The name of this podcast is Joy. I talk to interesting people about what brings them happiness. My guest today, everyone, is a gentleman who is outspoken. He knows what he thinks, and he's not afraid to tell you what he thinks. He's going to tell you right now. He is the singular Adam Carolla. Enjoy. All right, so we very briefly were talking about the right age to complain. I feel like I'm 62. I'm going to be 63 very soon, and I think that's now I can really start to complain. I can get people off my lawn. I can say that young people are ruining the world, and that my hip hurts. And all three of those things are maybe true.
Yeah, but the problem is we've now enacted a sort of demographic for complaint, which is if you're heterosexual male and you have money and you're over 6 foot, and you're white, then who are you to complain? Which is, I feel like I don't want that taken away from me just because of the color of my skin or just because of my bank account. I feel like complaining is, maybe not uniquely American, but maybe we've perfected the art of it. And I like the notion of having all these things going for me and still complaining. Like, I feel like it should give hope to other people that even with all the privilege and all the money and all the luxury, I still can't complain.
Well, I think that it's not. First of all, I take issue with the fact that it's a uniquely American skill.
I agree. No, I think we've perfected it, but I don't. It's not. It's worldwide, but we may have put like cinema. Everyone's got it, but we just perfected it.
Well, I see. Even then, I don't know, Adam. I mean, what about the Italians? You're Italian people. The Italians do some pretty good cinema. Let's be honest. It's just that what you're talking about is that you're aware of it because you're in America. But if you were in Italy, you'd be like, "Hey, what's the coming to go? We got some pretty good cinema."
Yeah, I think this is an argument where you go, well, what about this great film? What about Fellini, or what about this great film out of Paris? That all true, but volume wise, I think we're the heavyweight champion.
I think here's where the agreement is that we in America have made a business out of complaining that cannot be matched.
Yes.
For sheer size and money and just the volume and scope of complaints, it makes everyone else just look like specialists.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, that's fair enough. So listen, I was looking at, that thing when you have someone on the show and you haven't talked to them for a while, so you Google them. I don't know if you still do that. I did. I Googled you just before I come on, and what I didn't know, and I've been aware of you for a very long time. You and I have bumped into each other on campus a few times over the years, but I had no idea, and maybe this is not true, maybe this is internet, that you were a boxer and a pretty good one too?
I was a trainer and a boxer and a pretty good one from a technician standpoint, but I wasn't ever ranked or anything like that. I was just an amateur guy, but I did do it for a living. I did teach it as a trainer for a living for a period of time.
Did you teach these Hollywood women with the mitts? Did you go to like Beverly Hills Housewives and just let them hit the mitts and tell them how powerful they were?
Yeah. Well, what I did technically is I ran classes for the Hollywood women and their, lawyer husbands or producer husbands. And then I had some private students where I ran the mitts for them as well. And I worked at a place called Bodies in Motion, which had a couple of locations around Los Angeles in the day. And I worked at the one in Old Town Pasadena, which I built actually, because the guy told me if I built the place, then I built it out. It was already a structure, then I could teach there. So I wanted to teach there because I was a carpenter.
I think that's very Butch that you're a carpenter and a boxer. I've never I've never fought, but I did boxing training to stay in shape, probably like lawyers and Hollywood ladies. And I've never been in the kind of shape that I'm in when I was sparring and hitting the bag and running every day. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's a good workout. It's kind of a sport mixed with a workout, and you can. Things kind of nice about it is you can skip rope for 10 minutes, and that's its own thing, and then you could go shadow box in front of the mirror for 10 minutes, and that's its own thing, and then you could hit the heavy bag for 10 minutes, and that's its own thing, and then you could spar for 10 minutes, and you could hit the focus pads, so you can kind of move around versus sit on a rowing machine for an hour, or a treadmill for half an hour, or whatever, that super repetitive part of working out, which gets really taxing. You can, when you're skipping rope and you're being miserable, you go, well, in another 4 minutes, I'll be able to put the gloves on and hit the heavy bag, and that'll be better. And you can keep going from station to station.
Do you still do it? Do you still do that?
Well, my hands are so screwed up from so much boxing and so much carpentry that it's really difficult. But what I do almost on a daily basis is I shadow box. And shadow boxing is actually probably better than hitting the heavy bag in terms of technique, because you're forced to kind of work your technique. Sometimes when people get on a heavy bag, they just kind of wail on it, which isn't really technique. It's just kind of you getting out aggression or trying to thump it as hard as you can. I would say that most people who wanted to get better at boxing, if they just really worked on skipping rope and really worked on shadow boxing, they would get much better versus, sparring and hitting the heavy bag.
Well, I think it's too late for me now. I think it's 62. I should just maybe go for a walk and have a coffee.
I'll tell you one thing I discovered recently, semi-recently about I'm with you going for a walk. I got a weighted vest. I
did that too.
Oh, you did that too?
Yeah.
And
it's amazing.
You go for a walk, and especially if there's an incline, man, if there's a hill by your house or something, put that 25-pound vest on, hike up the hill. It'll be a walk and a workout.
You know what? I was doing a show once, like a comedy show, and I had to wear a fat suit, like a really heavy fat suit for this bit in the show. And because of the way it was, I was wearing the fat suit all day. And I thought this would be a great workout thing for somebody, because not only is it really a lot to carry around, but when you take it off the day, it's like you're a before and after picture. You get used to yourself being really heavy, then you just take it off, and so it motivates you and sweats the shit out of you. And that's what I think the weighted vest is a bit like. But maybe it should be dressed up a little bit so you look more portly.
Well, maybe they'll make a weighted vest with stretch marks.
I think that might be the way to go.
That's my idea in case anyone wants to do it.
Yeah, I think that I own it now because this is.
Oh, yeah. Well, you suggested it.
I suggested it, so now I own it.
You were
I'll
asking
take
what?
on Shark Tank or something. What about how did you get into doing boxing? Was it because you went to school in Hollywood, right? Was it tough? Was that what it was? Was it self-defense?
No, I went to school in North Hollywood, which is like not Hollywood at all. It's just North Hollywood. It's kind of the valley.
Like the valley, yeah.
Yeah.
But
no, I wasn't. I was kind of the captain of the football team, so I wasn't really picked on or anything. I was picked on by my own jock friends, and we picked on each other, but we didn't really get picked on outside of our friendship. I had very aggressive friends who just did horrible things to me physically, but they were friends, So no, it wasn't out of a sense of self-defense. It was more like I played football for a long time, and then at some point I couldn't play football anymore, and I wanted to do something that had some physicality to it, a contact sport, so to speak, because football, it was a lot of fun hitting people and getting into it with people and just the physicality of football. I liked it. But I couldn't really play football at that level anymore. So boxing seemed like a physical thing to do that was like sort of a contact sport. And that's kind of when I took it up.
Are you still a fan of it? Do you follow it? Do you watch the fighters coming up and
Yeah, I watch it. I mean, UFC is probably a little more exciting than boxing, but I enjoy boxing as well. And it's nice to see the UFC guys really come into their own in terms of technique with their hands, because at the beginning they were kind of sloppy, and now they're getting pretty tight. And it just over the last decade, they've really cleaned up their form. I really don't.
I've never really watched the UFC fight. Now I'm aware of it, but I was always a bit of a snob about it because I just like the fact that that boxing is all technique, and to watch guys who are so gifted and so fast. But you know what? I should watch UFC a little bit. It seems like it's a whole circus now as well. It's huge. It's kind of like, did you get into it early on?
Yeah, I mean, I liked boxing. I liked combat sports. I was working in that world a little bit. I mean, I was always training and then working as a trainer and stuff. So I was always kind of, in that world. If there is going to be a fight, someone will invite you over. Hey, we're going to watch the fight. It's a kind of it's a little fraternity of, you're working with guys that are trainers.
Yeah.
You're training guys who like boxing. A fight comes up. Inevitably, they say, I'm having people over. Come over Friday. We'll watch the fight. So you get sort of, kissed into it a little bit because that's who you're working with,
What about in the world of sports radio and radio and like podcast? And I think of you as being one of the real kind of OGs of this game. That like you kind of is like one of the guys that started the podcast world, weren't you?
I was one of the earlier podcasters. There were others, but there were very few back then. I kind of what I will take credit for is not for podcasting, but for sort of starting the business model of podcasting, of getting advertisers and kind of formatting it in a way which isn't really anything new. It's just the old radio format, but sort of taking podcasting and kind of turning it into a business is something I'll take some credit for. And also the live podcast. I started doing live podcasting 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago. And now everyone does a live podcast. But when I did it, no one knew what it was. The people in the audience didn't know what it was.
It's such an odd thing because it's kind of the dominant strain of what people like you and I do now, isn't it? It's kind of like, it used to be kind of like a side hustle, and now it's the main thing. I can't imagine. I mean, this podcast is, I do with iHeartRadio, but I can't see me, doing that forever. It doesn't seem to make any sense. You can just put it up on YouTube and you're done.
Yeah. YouTube and the visual component of podcasting has turned into something that wasn't anything when I started. Nobody really needed to see you podcast. They just need to hear you podcast. I still am a little confused as to why they need to see you podcast, but for some reason it's turned into a large aspect of podcasting, which to me, I'm a little sad about, because I really like the notion of speaking and you putting earbuds in and going for a hike and just listening to what I'm saying versus, sitting on your phone, waiting at an airport, watching what I'm saying.
Well, I think also as well, because it is the phones that do it. I think that it's weirdly less intimate, because I always thought like radio is really kind of an intimate thing. As a listener, it really feels like, you're much more involved in it somehow, which is weird because you're not seeing it. And then the other thing is, I think now is that, and I know this has happened to you, that there's such a hunger in the zeitgeist and in the media for any kind of controversy or clickbait or something that will spike somebody else's little headline, that they'll take a tiny piece of what you're saying and make it sound different to what you were actually saying in order to create a problem. And I think do you think it's kind of, you're kind of more of a sitting duck than you used to be? Does that bother you at all?
It doesn't bother me, but I have a unique gene of not being that concerned about what people say about me or think about me, even as long as I feel like I know what I feel about me. I don't mean some bullshit about in my heart. I just mean like there are things I will say that are deeply unpopular and get the ire of a lot of people. But if it's the truth, then it's the truth, So
yeah.
I look at myself as a doctor, and I'm just telling you have cancer and you don't want to hear that, and I've ruined your day, and now you're weeping and maybe you're angry at me. And my feeling is I am sorry to present you with this information, but that's my job and that's my field of expertise, and you should know about it. And now at some point you're angry at me, and I don't know, I don't have anything to do with that. I'm just presenting you with what happens to be the truth. And I've done it, on the air, and I've done it. I've had it happen socially as well, where, I had a whole table of friends turn on me while eating brunch, about 10 people, because I just told them the truth about a certain topic, a subject we were talking about. And they all started, yelling at me, and they got angry at me. And I just told them, look, I'm sorry if you guys can't handle whatever this thing is that I happen to know about, but I'm just telling you, and that's your business. And yes, I will ruin this brunch, and I will be the least popular person at this table, but that's not going to prevent me from telling you the truth of how and what I know about it.
What about if someone, do you ever get angry if someone tells you something and you profoundly disagree with it? Does that ever make you mad?
I mean, for me, it's a kind of a, yes, I'll answer that. Yes. When Governor Gavin Newsom was sitting in here years ago, over a decade ago, and I was telling him that homeless people were basically drug addicts and or people with huge psychological disorders or both. And that's who was sleeping on the street. and that's what we need to focus on. And he told me the real picture of homelessness was a mother who was divorced, who had a full-time job, who's got kicked out of her house because she got divorced or something and had 2 kids and worked full-time, minimum wage. I said, that's not it at all. It's what I'm talking about. And then I got angry at him because he's made the problem worse by not listening to what the truth was about homeless. So yes, I will get angry at these people because they're exacerbating problems and they're making the problems worse, you know? So yeah, I guess I'll be that way. I've always been pragmatic and just told people, here's what you need to do. But you know, a sort of micro macro, like I used to be a carpenter and I went to my mom's very tiny house years and years ago, and she said she was going to remodel the bathroom. And I said, all right. And I went and kind of looked at the space, and I said, you need to make sure you frame in a pocket door, a sliding pocket door here when you're framing this out, because if you open the door, it's just going to cut off the hallway. And if the door swings in, it's just going to hit the sink that's on the inside the bathroom. So make sure you get a pocket door. She said, all right. And then I came back like 6 months later and I looked at it and she didn't have a pocket door. And I opened the door and it opened and smacked my stepdad in the ass who was standing at the sink. And I just thought, okay, why didn't you listen to me? Why didn't you do what I told you to do? It would, by the way, not for me, for you. This would have been so much better. But most people don't. Most people don't.
But here's what I think that what the headline of that particular morality tale is, though, that you didn't see your mom for 6 months. There's your problem. If you had been there as the construction work was going on, you could have said, wait, we have to put a pocket door in. But because you neglected your mother for 6 months, so really you're to blame.
You know what? I got to find a mirror. To be fair, could have been 3 months, and also I could have met her for brunch 2 times in that interim, but not showed up at her house.
Brunch is a meal that comes up for you quite a lot, which is interesting because I think of you as a very kind of butch, straight down the line guy. And brunch, let's be honest, is America's only openly gay meal. So I find that it's an interesting mix for you.
I don't subscribe to that statement that you just made about openly gay brunch. And I'll tell you why. Okay. You're old enough to remember a book, a very popular bestseller from the 70s called Men Don't Eat Quiche. There's certain...
Yeah. Real men don't eat quiche. Yeah, that's right.
Real men don't eat quiche. I will file that under brunch, which is... Hell yeah, I eat quiche. It's eggs, it's ham, it's in a pastry shell. It's delightful. What does that mean, real men don't eat quiche? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there's bacon, cheese, eggs, and it's in a pie shell. I love pie. I love bacon, I love cheese, and I love eggs. So where even come off with real men don't eat quiche? I would eat quiche during brunch, happily.
What, so you eat quiche at lunchtime?
Brunch. I'm saying I would eat quiche. I would eat the food that real men don't eat at the only openly gay meal of the day.
Did you just come out to me there? Is that what happened?
Not intentionally, but yeah, practically.
Under 1970s rules, that's what you did.
I just came out.
It's funny because it really is an odd thing because, I mean, look, I don't want to kind of bang on about cancel culture and the way things have changed and all that because I feel like, you know, I feel like I talk about it too much. But it does seem interesting to me that you and I will laugh at hardships, or not just you and I. People will laugh at hardships and stuff that offends me. I find it quite funny, stuff that offends me. I kind of seek out comedy that offends me, but that's kind of very different now. It's a different taste, I think.
Well, I gotta wonder. I think I think it depends how you feel about yourself. In
Yeah,
that,
maybe. Yeah.
I feel secure about myself in that I think there's a couple things going on. And it was weird. So I think it was yesterday. Somebody wrote me a tweet, and I'll paraphrase, but it said like, when did you become some sort of diarrhea tampon that just absorbs all the diarrhea around you and sucking up to your billionaire friends who make fun of you behind your back? When did you become this? And I just wrote 2009. And but it was funny to me. It was funny to me. And then I thought to myself, this guy just wrote the most vile thing he could think of, he could summon about me. And I thought it was funny. Now, why did I think it was funny? I'm not saying, oh, I'm so secure, nothing affects me. I'm just saying I found it amusing. And so I just wrote back 2009 is when I began becoming that diarrhea absorbing
tampon.
Right. And so I wasn't bothered by it at all. I kind of like it. And people will say to me things, oh, you this or you're that, or you just, you're only famous because you sucked off Jimmy Kimmel or whatever. But I know what I did. And I understand what I do. Or sometimes people will go, you're the least funny person on the planet. I'm like, have you met my stepdad, John? I can't be the least, No. So, I mean, second, top 5, maybe, unfunniest people on the planet. So it doesn't really work. But then I also realized a lot of this, I think, is born of some sort of insecurity. And I'm not a boastful person, but I'm horribly secure. I'm very secure, but it's only because I have a sort of track record of achievement, and I do a lot of things, and I achieve in many different departments of life, and I understand it. It's like I really think part of what we're missing is a skill set. I really do believe the base of my sanity is having a trade. Like being a carpenter, actually physically, tangibly knowing how to build a house. There's something about that gives you a security, like a base. Like
I totally understand.
Have a skill.
Yeah,
you have a field of expertise.
I think that's totally right. I mean, I don't have that, and I kind of wish I did. But I understand it from a point of view. I'll tell you something I did very similar. That when I started in late night in 2005, that because I had to sign a very punitive deal with CBS, and so I wasn't allowed to do anything at all on television unless I got their permission. So they kind of owned me for everything. Like, couldn't do a movie, couldn't do a radio show, couldn't do a commercial, couldn't do anything unless I got their permission to do it. The only one thing they allowed me to do was live stand-up. Live stand-up they weren't interested in, and it didn't bother them, and I could go and do that. And I had done that, as a kid, and I had done that starting out. So that was the closest thing I had to a trade. And as time went on in late night, I always stayed going and doing stand-up because I felt like it was the thing I could fall back on. The way you're describing having a trade, that it was my autonomy, if you like. Do you know what I mean? It's like if everything turns to shit, I can do this.
A trade isn't necessarily plumber or carpenter. Stand-up is a trade. Being a pilot is a trade. Being a certified accountant is a trade. I'm saying a field of expertise.
Yeah,
which could be,
but I think
could be sculptor. Really.
Yeah, I think that's a very difficult game to earn a living on. I'll just sculpt a couple of things till the end of the month. It might be a little tricky.
I'm not talking about I'm not approaching it from a financial aspect.
okay.
I'm saying there are a lot of people that are certified pilots, right? But they don't get paid as a professional airline pilot. They fly private planes on the weekends or whatever, but they're pilots. They can operate a helicopter or something like that.
I'm one of them. I can fly an airplane.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah, I have a pilot's license. Yep.
That's a field of expertise that you have that other people don't have. And it gives you a kind of a base, like I'm calling it a confidence for lack of a better term, but a sort of steady understand. I don't know, speaking a second language, playing the stand-up bass. You know what I mean? Just things you can do. And I think the more that you have, the more secure you are. Because if you think about the people that are sort of melting down at town hall meetings and screaming as loud as they can and sort of going out of their mind, you couldn't imagine them having a pilot's license, could you?
No.
And you couldn't imagine them being a skilled electrician, like a journeyman electrician or something. Like you really can't, or sitting down at the piano and playing Chopin. You know what I mean? I mean, like having these base sort of skills, I do think is a foundation for sanity.
I think you're absolutely right. And you know what? It's kind of, it occurs to me as you say it, around about 2016, the election cycle in 2016, I made a decision that I was never again in stand-up going to discuss any politics. I'm not going to do any politics at all. None. And it was an experiment, first of all, to see if I could do it. And then secondly, to give myself a break. And I think what it does is it allows you to go into a thought process that is not part of the noise that's going on all the time. And I think what you're describing is right. Like if you're flying an airplane or building a house or you applying yourself to the area of expertise you're talking about, you're not thinking about all the things that make you mad. You're concentrating on something else. And I think that's what it is. I think you're right. It's an odd thing. Do you think that's what the noise is, that, the kind of hyperbolic nature of everybody talking to each other on social media and everyone getting, on fire with everything all the time is because that's all they think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely know that. When you are, it's tied to this sort of lack of physical existence that we've gone into, that you used to work on a farm and you used to chop wood, you'd be in a logging camp, you just have to get up and go do something physical, men and women. Women would go milk the cow, collect the eggs, start the fire and, cook the whatever, like whatever they did. Everyone sort of had a task, and people were, that's how they got paid. And then at some point, everyone moved indoors and started getting into cubicles and lots of air conditioning, and they start staring at the computer screen and they become very sedentary. And while they did a task, the task was sort of endless and never had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It was just kind of data entry, just the next piece of data to enter. When you build a barn, at some point you step back and you look at that barn and you think to yourself, I built that barn and it's done now. And then you move on. But we removed that from about 90% of the populace, and people's minds started turning on themselves. They don't really do that. I work with blue collar guys always, and they just think in a pragmatic way. And also, they don't have any issues with things like they don't have dietary restrictions. I would just go, I'm going on a lunch run, and they'd go, all right, boss. And then I wouldn't even tell them where I was going, and I would just come back with, 10 hamburgers and 10 fries or 10 burritos and 10 tacos, or whatever it is. None of them had any issues with gluten or allergies or something upset their stomach, or there was nothing. They just ate whatever they ate, and then you just got back up and you went to work, and no one said a word. And there were no rules, and there's no restrictions.
I think there's that, and I think there's also the idea that everyone wants to appear smart, and if you're indignant, it can make you feel like you're smart. I always thought that about comedy comes in for that. Even if you just look at the way comedy is treated, like it's a very rare thing for a comedy thing to win an Oscar or a Golden Globe or anything like that, because because comedy is it's not kind of, the thought is done by the person who's performing it, not necessarily the person that's absorbing it. And I think that, if you make people laugh, they don't feel clever. But if you make them think, if you kind of like massage them or make them kind of being angry as well, anger is, I think, or being indignant or being outraged feels like I'm clever. I notice things that other people don't know, so therefore I'm better in it, to kind of boost your confidence because you don't have your carpentry or pilot's license or whatever the hell is, something else to kind of bolster you. So the indignance is the kind of the ersatz skill. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's also, I think there's a lot of virtue signaling too, which is they care more than you care. You don't care what's going on with the indigenous people or the climate or whatever's going on, and they care, Trump is an existential threat, and he's gonna attack democracy, and they're gonna fight Trump, whereas you're gonna sit back and watch SportsCenter. So if you sort of went back historically and you want, Hitler was rising to power, and one group of people were going to fight Hitler and the other group were going to a pub to have a beer, you'd go, well, who was the more noble person in this equation? You'd go, well, the person obviously was going to go fight Hitler. And that's who the real hero would have been in this equation. So I think there's some of that, because they announce, here's what's going on. There's an existential threat against humanity, and it's known as climate change, and they're going to fight it, or whatever it is, whatever the subject is, they're going to fight about it. And sort of de facto, if you're not fighting about it or fighting for it, then you're sort of complicit in this thing, whether it's climate or Hitler or whatever the subject is. You're sort of on the side of the evil or the big company or Monsanto or Trump or Hitler or whatever it is. And so you're sort of de facto for it. And they are against it, which makes them the hero in this equation. But the problem with this equation is I haven't signed off on the premise. You know what I'm saying? If I do think this person is Hitler, then I'm going to help you fight against them. But that's where the rift is, I think, which is what they're doing versus what I'm doing. Like Newsom declared that it was the noble mother of three that was homeless, and he's going to do something about it. But I think it's junkies. So he is more noble than I, if that's what he's going to go do something about. But my problem is that I know that's not what the problem is, and he's not going to fix anything, and thus he hasn't, because he hasn't identified the problem. So that's where the chasm is.
What about the idea of getting in? Did you ever toy with the idea of going into politics yourself, getting into it proper?
No, I mean, my problem is I have a lot of pragmatic ideas, and I'll give you a for instance. And this part of the politics I would do. Like, I was at a party at Mark Garrigus, the attorney's house, who knows a lot of politicians and judges and those kind of people. And I think Mark introduced me to some guy who said he was, a district selectman or something in this area. And I said to him, where I work on the street behind me, there's lots of people dumping garbage, dumping construction materials, busted out stucco and drywall and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, I know. That's a problem. We have to go in there and clean it up all the time as people dump it back there. I said, yeah. Do you know why they dump it? He said, not really, no. I said, well, the dump cost $180. That's why they dump it there. And he goes, yeah, okay. And I go, who's doing the dumping? He goes, I don't really know. I said, poor Mexicans who do all the construction work out here. They don't want to pay $180 to go to dispose of it the right way because they're on a real tight budget. And they can come here for free on a Sunday night and just dump it in 2 minutes and leave. He goes, oh, yeah. Because, these are poor Mexicans who do all the construction work out here. So I go, there's a Home Depot literally up the street. He goes, yeah. I go, why don't you have a guy handing out leaflets in English and in Spanish that say you can dump for free at the dump? That's, down the street. This is a coupon. You don't have, they're not going to charge you $180. And when you go over there to dump it, they'll give you a 12-pack of Tecate. And he goes, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And then about a half hour later at the party, the guy circled back to me and he said, what was that idea you had again about the dumping? And I said, oh man, this is why we're at where we're at. Just let's figure out what's motivating people and let's fix it. You don't have to judge. You just fix it. Who is doing the dumping? Construction guys. How do we know? It's all stucco and drywall and busted out, demoed out stuff. Who's doing it? The super poor guys who do the demo work. They do the hauling. They haul garbage. You know what I mean? Good. How much is the dump? It's too expensive for these guys because they give a bid. The bid is like, I'll do it all for $1,000. All right. They want to peel off 200 more bucks out of that and hand it to the city. Why isn't the dump free? Make it free. If you don't want them to dump everything on the side of Mulholland, then make the dump free. How do we get the word out? Go to the Home Depot and have it on a sign in Spanish. Hand out flyers at the Home Depot. That's where they shop.
It's very hard to argue with that as a solution because I'm trying to find some way to kind of be responsible and kind of say, but wait a minute, but I kind of can't. It's like, it does make sense. I think the thing with government and why probably you don't go into it is you describe it. It's just the frustration of getting anything done because it's not really I don't know that they would fucking care about getting anything done.
No, their process. In certain places they do, but in Los Angeles, they're all just process people. They want to have a meeting. Yeah. We would have a meeting about this. At some point, I'd be called culturally insensitive. At some point, it would be explained to me why it's not going to work. We'd take a vote. I would lose the vote. And then I would get angry. And then I'd yell, all right, fuck you. Clean up your garbage in the street for the rest of your life. I don't give a fuck. And then I would leave the meeting.
It seems a good enough place as any to let it go. I think you're right. I think it's just it's a logjam. I don't know how anyone could go into politics. I just don't fucking know how anyone could do it.
Well, you could. I'll tell you what you could do. And I've been really drilling down on this a lot lately, and I talked to Dr. Drew about it a lot. There are people who want to do things, and then they're process people. And I know it because my mom was a process person. My dad was a process person. They wanted to sit and talk about things, but they never really wanted to get up and go make a run and buy materials and start the project. They wanted to discuss the project. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are process people, probably percentage-wise more women than men, but there's plenty of men that are process people as well. And so if you inhabit the LA City Council or whatever the city council is, if you fill it with process people, then you're going to get a lot of, we're going to need to do a report on, and we have a committee that's going to discuss this, and we're going to. Meanwhile, 5 years goes by, and we have twice as many homeless as we had when you started the first meeting, and nothing ever really happens. But it's a long discussion about it. Those are process people, and they get attracted to politics. Now, there are non-process people. Like we had a mayoral race a few years ago. We had Rick Caruso. He's a commercial builder. So commercial builders are like, hurry, what's going on? Hurry, hurry, hurry. You know, like when Trump spoke to Karen Bass, he was like, let's go, clean up those fires now. People need to do it themselves. They want to start tonight. Tonight, he's yelling, and she's going, whoa, 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 slow down, safety, safety. So that's a commercial builder talking to a process person. So we elected a process person, not a commercial builder who's like, what all the commercial builder goes is, why aren't the foundation guys done, or foundation's done, or the forming's done? Where's the concrete? Where's the concrete guys? We got to start framing. We got to get the pour in before we start framing. Everything is hurry, hurry. What's next? But we like process people here, where we sit and have a discussion about things. And my mom would have liked it that way. She liked the process. And the process is, people are good because they give very soothing speeches and discussions. But the problem is at some point, you got to fix the potholes and fill the reservoirs and that kind of stuff. And that's not the work of a process person. That's the work of the commercial builder person. And then so what happens is the commercial builder person becomes an annoyance to the process person because they come in and they go, what's going on in here? Come on, let's go. And the process person goes, slow down. We want to keep it safe. Now, the process person doesn't say, I'm a process person, I'm never going to do anything. They go, I want to get it done as bad as you do, but we got to take our time. We have to do this safely. We got to make sure, get the right permits, do the testing, check the soil, slow it down. And then 5 years goes by and nothing's happened. And that's kind of, LA is kind of a process person thing. That's what we do. We talk about things, but we don't really do that much.
You know, it's the truth. It's like it's in show business, it's in the television business, it's in the movie business. There's a lot of, even when they do something, they want to check before they pull the trigger on what they've done. You have to get a focus group on a movie you've already made. They
have so many meetings.
I know.
And meetings nothing ever comes out the other end. And it's funny, they always go, could we just get together? And I go, I already told you whatever this or that. We're done. But we want to get together one more time. It's always funny. They'll even do stuff, from shooting stuff. They'll go, we're all going to meet in the lobby at 6:30 in the morning, and the van is picking us up at 7. And I go, well, why don't I just be down there at 7? Well, we all want to get down to the lobby at 6:30 and make sure we're all there. I'll go, when's the van showing up? 7. All right, I'll be down at 7. We're meeting at 6:30. Okay, I don't know what you're doing. I'll be there at 7. We're getting into the van, right? Yeah, where's the van taking? The van's taking us to the set. Okay, so I'll be down at 7. I won't be down at 6:30. We're all meeting at 6:30.
You guys get down there at 6:30, get me a quiche, have my quiche be hot, and I'll eat it in the van on the way to the set.
And a mimosa.
All right, we got to go, because we'll be complaining about people talking too much, and I've been talking too much. But it's lovely to catch up with you again, Adam. You're always a breath of fresh air. I continued success, and it's good to check in with you. Let's do it again soon.
I hope so, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
You too. Bye.